the past, when you mention the wife, only two things come to mind: bedroom duties or domestic chores. But the times have changed and the narrative is changing. A huge number of Nigerian women have undergone a total transformation, and that has given us a formidable spot in the corporate workspace. But aside from all of that, we still have to, juggle with the home front while discharging our duties as mothers and as wives. But the big question here is, do husbands really help? The conversation continues after the break. My name is Lilian Imoni, and you're welcome to The Amazons. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it's The Amazons, and I have my beautiful co-host with me, Aisha Falode.
You look very lovely today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So on today's episode, we are discussing the working woman. Do husbands really support? Do husbands really help?
Lilian, the woman has found her purpose. She's found power. She's limitless, unlimited.
I like that.
You cannot underestimate the capacity and the capability of the woman. In the past, this was subdued. Because, number one, we lived in a society that assumes that the man should provide for the family. The man is the head of the home. The man is authority. Anything the man says, the woman supports. But times have changed. We live in a society now where one income is not enough to support the family. We live in a society where women have also found their space for expression, both small businesses that they create themselves and thrive in sitting on the boards of conglomerates. In the corporate world, they have found their voice and they have well established their position and authority. It would be very unfair to a man who has a woman with all this potential in her to still see her in that light of my wife. Because she's my wife, she's only limited to the home, to do the chores, to take care of the children, to raise the family, which in itself is a full-time job.
True.
Being a wife and a mother is a full-time job. You have no resumption time, you have no closing time. It's 24/7 every day.
True.
So now, on top of that, add this also supporting the husband to make the home, to have sufficient income to support the family. I think any reasonable husband who wants the family to really
have a happy home,
yes, to grow, because really, truly and honestly, they say money is the heart of everything. Without the enough income, the marriage begins to break down. There will be a lot more squabbles. There will be unhappiness because you really can see what the family needs that you cannot provide. And that is a breakdown. There will begin to be a breakdown of communication. So I think really, I am all for the woman who has gone way beyond, establishing herself, also now supporting the home. And the husbands should support the wives to make better wives and still make better, in whatever businesses they find themselves, have the peace of mind to do it, the focus, and to support their growth in the journey that they are.
I like what you said. I am all for the woman, the Amazons. So, I think also that it would be a very great disservice to both the man and the woman, because the woman has found the beauty of her innate potentials, and if she doesn't maximize that potential, it's a huge disservice to the man and
it's
the
not
woman.
Only a disservice, it's a waste.
It's a waste, yes, it's a waste.
If you do not have the opening, to bring to fore that which you have in you, it's just like you are not fulfilled.
I think that,
and that brings a lot of happiness. It can lead to depression as well. That I know I can do this. Why am I not being supported to do that? You become moody, especially if you do not find somebody to talk to about it. And the first person you want to consider when you have these emotions building up in you is the husband. I mean, if it's not there to give you a listening ear, and is the one that is quick at the critic, is the one that brings you down. He's the one that even tells you, even when he knows that you are good at what you're doing, he's the one to see the faults, not the strength in that which you are doing.
True. I know that reminds me of the popular saying that for every woman, the best career decision she would make is who she marries, because who she marries would either make or mar her.
Very true.
You know, your husband should be your first cheerleader. He should be the one behind the meeting room cheering you that I got you, I got you, I got your back. You
Very
know.
true.
And how does he show you that he supports your dream, he appreciates your gift, because it's value she's adding to you. There's some places where you know that your strength does not come into play. When you invite your wife, it complements it. I also think that, kudos to our Nigerian men also, they are trying. There are some men who support their wives. There are some men who really, really go with their wives. There's some men, they go with their wives to every meeting just to give them that support, that, send them some text messages. Don't say that statement now. Don't do this now. So there are some men who are doing that, but this program is for those who are not even trying. So I'm sure you pick a thing or two from our discussion today.
The challenge with not supporting the wife is because we are not appreciating that the days we are in, there is something called role reversal going on.
The challenge is some men don't see it that way. They're going to stick with what they've been doing and they're not going to go out of that.
It's quite simple. You can't give what you don't have. Most of the men who live in that box, if you check very well, they have chronic insecurity issues. And that is the root of it.
Say that again.
I think most times men replicate what they've seen. So I think they don't know better.
They don't know any better.
Welcome back to the Amazons, where today we are talking about supporting the working wife. The husbands really help. We have guests in the studios who will be telling us how they are getting the support of their spouses and then how really a working woman should be supported by her husband. Zubairu Kadiri, a business engineer and a husband. You're welcome to the Amazons.
Thank you very much.
And of course, Ima Steve Harry, a mother and a business owner. Welcome to the Amazons.
Thank you.
So I'll just go straight for the man and shoot at him first. So you heard us discussing backstage, the world has changed. I mean, you have a working wife, she's complimenting you. You should also begin to appreciate her for that. For those husbands, really, the people we are talking about here today are those husbands who don't support their wife. Do you? First of all, is your wife a full-time housewife, or is she a working mother, a working wife?
Oh, wow. So, first and foremost, I guess you need to understand my dynamics. So let me try and introduce my wife. I tell
That's a way of support,
yes,
right?
I tell people who care to understand that I married I practice polygamy even though I'm married to one woman, because my wife is a crowd. She has many sides. She's a professional HR specialist. She's bilingual. She's a fitness buff.
Really?
She compares. She writes songs.
The woman is limitless.
She's a full-time consultant, full-time career woman, full-time mother, full-time woman in ministry, all in one.
Full-time wife.
So you can imagine her routine and her lifestyle. But for me, I think the first thing I always say to my fellow men is the challenge with not supporting the wife is because we are not appreciating that the days we are in, there is something called role reversal going on. What we call roles are evolving, and because of those evolution, those people who are still stuck in what those roles were probably a decade or two ago will definitely have challenge succeeding in today's society in the place of marriage, because they don't understand that those rules are being reversed. Typically, for example, the man says it's not my job to make breakfast, but I make breakfast most often than not. Right now, my wife has been away for the last 4 days, and I have 2 boys, 8 and 4. It's my duty to wake them up in the morning, say their prayers, put them through the meal, get them ready, send them to school. I do have a help, but I prefer to still do most of it myself because I feel that it's part of the bonding experience. So they go pick them up from school, bring them back home, make sure they do their homework with me and all of that. Most men will say that's not the typical men's role, but I don't see it like that because we came to complement each other, so we complete each other. So when there is a gap, I feel it is our responsibility to fill it. It's not a man's job, it's not a woman's job, it's our job.
So for Ima, is it Zubairu or Kadiri? How should I refer to you?
Oh, whichever is fine, it's my name. If you call me Kadiri, if it's easier. Most people run from Zubairu.
Okay, so Kadiri, what we've heard, Imana, what we've heard from Kadiri is a perfect picture of a perfect husband, you know, of what a husband should be to a wife, complement each other. You are one. You've become one. There's no more division of this is your duty, this is my duty, this is my role, that is your role or responsibility. For those men who do not support, his wife has been away for some days now. He's in charge. He's both a father and a mother to his children. And for those men who still think, I really do not know if there are some men who still think that way now, that this is actually not my job. It's not my job to cook. It's not my job to get the kids ready for school. It's not my job to send them to bed. Not my job
I'm busy making money, you did the rest.
So for those husbands, what do you really have to say to them?
I just feel is a case of being insensitive and borderline being mean, because the wife is doing almost as much as you are doing, and even much more, because men tend to stay within the confines of what they've been doing, but women always stretch out. If there's no money, she'll try to get something to do. If the child needs to do homework, she will try to also do that. But the challenge is some men don't see it that way. They're going to stick with what they've been doing, and they're not going to go out of that. Any other thing is just too much. So I just think any man that does that is being plain mean. And it could be also that he's learned from someone, maybe his father, because I think most times men replicate what they've seen. So I think they don't know better.
They don't know any better. Regardless, that's not an excuse anyway.
Of course,
we learn every day. I'm sure our viewers are catching a thing or two from what you're saying. Back to you, Ima Steve Harris. What happens in the situation where, in fact, let me use your personal experience. Your husband is a very busy man. You are also a very busy woman. What happens when there's a conflict of your schedules and interest? Because, I mean, there are situations where the couples are very passionate, you know, about what they do. Sometimes we find our voices in the middle of the marriage, and we're both trying to... I saw a video of... Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, where Kanye West was telling Kim, I don't like what you're wearing these days, it's too tight and all of that. And she says, oh, you met me like this before you got married to me. Do not expect me to change overnight, to meet you at your journey, what you just found yourself doing. So everybody's trying to catch up. Yeah. So what happens when, you know, your busy schedules and your passion, the conflict, how do you manage such situations? Okay. Using yourself as an experience.
Yes, so luckily we have a help. And we also have relations living around who, if we need them to come step up for us, they will. However, we would say which is most important. So if mine is most important and his is just maybe some casual outing or something like that, he would hold on for me to go. And then, but what I would do is to make sure that I am back on time so he's able to meet up. So he's always like, is it very important? So we always ask, is it important? What are you going to gain from it? If it is key, then the person who has the most important of the meetings will go first.
Kadiri, I want to ask, you know, men, you have different traits, different character, just like the woman. For those men who will not support their wives in whatever they do, and can be silent about whether to, you know, whether to appreciate their wife in what they do.
True.
What about those ones who are not only silent, but critique what the woman is doing? How does that, you know, as a man, I want to get into the mindset of a man. How would you not appreciate and applaud and be the greatest fan or supporter of what your wife is doing?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that it's quite simple. You can't give what you don't have. Most of the men who live in that box, if you check very well, they have chronic insecurity issues. And that is the root of it.
Say that again.
Insecurity is probably one of the biggest relationship breaker I know in our time. Lots of people are living with chronic insecurities, and it's manifesting itself in all kinds of ways. So some people are exhibiting superiority complex, which is a common thing for men because of the ego quotient in us. So superiority complex is fed by our insecurities and the need to reinforce that we are not losing control of the situation. So he wants to feel like a boss, but a boss is very different from a leader. A boss says do the right thing, but a leader does it with you and says it's our job, it's our task, we are a team. So those men don't have a team spirit, and that's because where they are coming from, they didn't have role models who probably modeled that to them, but more importantly, they didn't have a reason to see value in that. I always tell people, reason for me is probably the most powerful force in the world. Reason is why people would look at another person in the face and kill them. And reason is the reason why I would see somebody in danger and to my own expense, I will go out of my way to help the person. I have found the reason. Men who do not support their wives, the real truth is they have found a reason not to. Whether that reason is good or not is a different conversation, but they are doing it because they have a reason. If I am on the side of the wife, my typical expression is to help them come to that reason, and from the man's perspective, to also find that reason why don't I support her? What does it take for me if I support her?
So we'll just hold it right there, Steve, Kadiri, Zubairu. We'll call for a break now. When we come back, we don't want to put all of this on the man, because some women too have not been able to manage their successes and draw the line between being a wife and being a CEO in the boardroom or in any business that you run. We'll be back talking the working wife. How do the husbands help? In this case, the wife, how do they complement being a wife and being a CEO? After the break.
You accepted to marry the man, to whatever he is, first submit. Because I feel men play to, okay, what they see, but also what they hear.
And that's why in relationship, you always want to check the feeling you are feeding, because that feeling is producing an outcome. Now, whether the other party is enjoying the outcome or not becomes a different conversation. So,
welcome back, and if you are just joining us, it's the Amazons, and we are discussing working wives. Do the men, do the husbands support? Remember that you can connect with us on our social media handles. On Instagram, it's the Amazons Official NG. On YouTube, it's the Amazons NG, and on Twitter, it's the Amazons NG. Our guests are still with us. We have Ima Steve Harris, and we have Zubairu Kadiri. But now we want to talk about the women, like she clearly stated, so that we don't just jump on only the men. The women also have a role to play. How do they manage their successes so that, you know, quote and unquote, it doesn't get into their head, they don't lose their roles, what they're supposed to do in the home front. So, oh, you're the one who's bringing in all the money. So as a man now, I will keep quiet. You are now my boss lady. Or take your boss lady outside. You know, when you're in the house, you are my wife. For the woman, let's strike a balance between them. So the question is, what is the role of a successful woman in the home front?
The Bible says that a woman should submit to her husband. Now, I know it's hard when the husband has some issues to submit, but if you come from the place where you're submitting, there's no pain because you're just doing what you have to do. Whether your husband is doing a lot more than you is your approach towards it, towards, you know, what you bring in. And as a successful woman, whether you accepted to marry the man, to whatever he is, first submit. Because I feel men play to, okay, what they see, but also what they hear. So if you are praising him, even if you're making more than him, he will begin to love you more. Like, oh, she really appreciates me, even if I'm not on her level. And he will begin to say, okay, maybe I can strive to become, what can I do? And the way she also addresses him with her friends or wherever else, it also helps with his ego too. So I think as a successful woman, just submit first. then try to work on the excesses of the husband, and then everything will just blend together. But
and also use diplomacy.
oh, of course.
You massage his ego
Yes, you
and all
have
of
to.
that.
You have to.
So that's back to you, Zubiru, how men feed on their ego and insecurities at the same time. So some men need the padding, but I feel that not every man needs the padding. A man who knows who he is and knows his place, does not need to be padded, and massage your ego and all of that. So what do you have to say to that, Zubiru?
First, I think I want to touch a bit on what she said. The truth of the matter is that perspective is everything to how you respond. We have to learn to wear many caps in our relationships, whether it's in marriage or in the office. There's a time when you are the boss, whether you are the man or you're the woman, and there's a time when you are the husband or the wife. You need to know when you are boss and when you are husband. So when I come into my home, I know when I am being the father, and there are times where I have to be the mother.
True.
So I don't have an entitlement mentality to being the father, and I don't have an entitlement mentality to not being the mother. As long as the responsibility will produce the collective outcome we both agreed, then it's fine. So for women who have come into some element of success and that begins to challenge their relationship, I think the biggest challenge is always not knowing when to wear a cap and when to take it off. Some people wear those caps permanently.
True.
Coming back to now your question, the ego thing, because it is feeding a feeling. And that's why in relationship, you always want to check the feeling you are feeding, because that feeling is producing an outcome. Now, whether the other party is enjoying the outcome or not becomes a different conversation. So you have to take responsibility for the feeling that is created in your home. So I'm not going to go for ego if it is going to be at the detriment of my relationship with my wife. So there are days where I absolutely know that I'm right, but I say sorry first. Not because I'm trying to win an argument, but because I'm going to win a relationship.
So the thing is, you see, women have excesses, just like the men have their ego. The excesses of a woman is as compulsive and as, it's not, I don't want to say it's acquired, but they just, I don't know, we just learn it, that sometimes you want to be forceful. The excesses of a woman means that there's no humility in what she does. She may carry the boss attitude from the office and bring it home. She doesn't know that she's now two persons in one. You are the boss in the office. As soon as you come in, you are now the wife and the mother. You look at the Queen of England. The Queen of England, even though she has a whole country singing her God Bless the Queen as an anthem, she is still a mother and a wife. Humility is key. So this is what the message I'm sending to the women. That, look, in as much as we want the men to support you in what you do, you also have to learn to be humble, negotiate and have a conversation. And be ready to know when to put the toga of the boss outside. As soon as you step into the door of your home, you are no longer a boss. The man is now the head of the home, is the boss of that home. Whatever you do is to compliment the man. I know some feminists may not like what I'm saying, but that's
I was going to go there.
Seriously. No, I don't know.
That's a serious challenge these days, because there's a thin line and people are not understanding what being a feminist is. So it feels like being a feminist is attack the men.
Or bash the man.
Yeah,
it's not bash the man.
But I believe it is being all you can be as a woman. That's what I believe it is. But I think we've taken it too far. And now especially the younger ones, I think it will affect them a lot.
I pray it doesn't. We'll change it eventually.
My take on that is honestly this. One of the things that's worked for me in my relationship with my wife is I always judge intent above actions. Now, me and my wife have very different backgrounds. So the truth of the matter is that we've been married for almost 10 years now. But we got married, I was already in my 30s when I got married. So I'm trying to learn to be somebody different who have been for 30 years at least. It's not an easy turn, but every time I meet my wife, there's some things she borderline does that till today, I still don't like. But I always judge her intent over her actions, and that has made it easier for me to deal with those excesses. So it also helps me deal with my ego. When she is brash sometimes, I typically don't like it brash, but she was brash. Now, I can choose to be offended by the action, but honestly, her being brash is because she's trying to push for something that is for our collective good. Her intent is good, but her method may not be the best.
True.
In that situation, it is my duty to know that her intent is good. And for that sake, I should put aside the action. The method may not be the very best, but I judge the intent over the action. And that makes it easier for me to manage the situation, not get disgruntled or hurt by it, because typically those actions look like she's bruising my ego. But I've learned not to have an ego, because this is not my marriage. It is not her marriage. It is our marriage, one collective good. And that's, as long as that good is fed, for me, I'm fine.
Because of time, we would have asked you what are the things that you learned. How did you groom yourself? I mean, a lot of people need to learn from you. A lot of men need to learn from you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's been the program today. Really, I hope that we've been able to give answers to some issues that would have been bothering, some of our women and husbands at home. We've had very frank discussions here, a no-holds-barred discussion. We are not here to make judgments or to enforce what we have said here. It's just to make it a broader discussion by also still following this conversation on our social media platform. It's been a pleasure having you, Zubairu Kadiri and Ima. Thank you very much for being a part of Amazons today. I'm Aisha Falode.